Alright class, this is Mr. Beller. If you are watching this video, then I have selected the visual hexagons activity for you, dealing with the three colonial regions, the New England colonies, the middle colonies, and the southern colonies. So this activity is going to measure or assess a couple of different things. Ultimately, you will want to be able to answer this question: how did geography affect the culture and economy of the British colonies? And in doing so, you will be looking at some of the key characteristics of each colonial region. You will be identifying certain key characteristics throughout this activity. And then finally, when answering the question, we also want to be able to compare and contrast the three regions. So before you get to this activity with the handout that you're seeing right now, I want you to use the handout that we have in your folders, and I want you to fill out this graphic organizer. And so when you're reading about the New England colonies, the middle colonies, and the southern colonies, I want you to write down terms, any facts, any characteristics that's unique to New England, or that are unique to the middle colonies, that are unique to the southern colonies. These include characteristics dealing with geography, what types of groups of people are living there, religion, facts about their economy, key events that are happening in those regions, key people, excuse me. Basically, you're compiling up key evidence that is specific to each region. You don't want to just write these down and not know any of the context surrounding it, because the very next step, after you have identified the key facts, characteristics, people, groups, events that are unique to each region, you're going to be asked to outline some similarities between the New England and middle colonies, outline some similarities between the middle colonies and the southern colonies, and outline some similarities among all three regions. You will be doing these similarities using the GIST method. So I want you to try to outline a similarity between the regions in about 20 words or less. You really want to shoot for 20. I think with the similarities among all three regions, you might need to shoot for 40 words, but basically I just want to make it very clear and concise that you know how the regions are similar. You want to answer what is the key reason for the similarities among these three groups. You want to be able to explain your choice. All right. Then on the right-hand side, we want to leave this behind right now. I want to come back to that at the very end. We'll look at that with the check for understanding. All right. So in addition to the reading handout, I've also given you a word bank. This word bank is going to help you fill in the graphic organizer. This is a way that you can check to make sure that you have key information about each region. Just a couple things here. Any of these terms that say Jamestown, remember Jamestown is in Virginia, so that would be under the southern regions. Anything that says Massachusetts Bay, that's in New England, so that would be in the New England region. Additional terms, this is just to make sure that you've understood or you've gotten some of the key points, and any of these additional terms can come or can be associated with New England, middle, or southern. This is up to you to decide the appropriate category. You also possibly need to use your textbook, and those chapters have been put on my blog where you can find information about each of these terms. If you feel like the handout is not giving you enough, please use your textbook to gain additional information. You can use your cell phone or any other technology. However, I find that sometimes when you Google terms, the amount of information that you're getting sometimes makes the key and significant points about that particular term get lost. So I really think that your textbook would be your first go-to as far as a source to make sure that you're getting the appropriate amount of information for each term. All right, so moving on to the visual hexagons assignment. All right, so this handout goes along with this product right here. All right, so when I say visual hexagons, I'm talking about this handout right here, and you'll see that you have 6 hexagons surrounding one center hexagon. It's key to note that all the first steps of the instructions all deal with the outside ring of the hexagon. You will not deal with the middle hexagon until the very end. All right. As you can see, it varies as far as what is depicted in this hexagon, and it can mean a number of things. So let's look at the instructions. All right. So the first thing that you need to do is to identify the images and how they relate to the central question. Remember, the central question is, how did geography affect the culture and the economy of the British regions? It's something that's key here that students sometimes get tripped up on. The image can represent not only a specific person, but also a larger point. It may summarize an area or a bigger aspect which link to the set question. All right, so when you're looking at this, and let's say we're looking at this map, right? Oops, let me change this real quick. All right, let's say that we're looking at this map right here. You can talk about how this map, or this is a map of the triangular trade route. You can talk about just one aspect of the triangular trade route and how it affected one region of the colonies. Say, for instance, if you wanted to talk about the Middle Passage and the Atlantic slave trade and how that affected the culture and economy of the southern colonies. Or you can take this as a larger, take it as a larger approach to the relationship with Great Britain, or how did the triangular trade route affect the cultural and economies of all 3 regions. I've also given you some starters for some of these pictures that aren't so clear. So the one up here at the very top, I've labeled this Philadelphia. So that gives you a clue that you might want to talk about Philadelphia and how these coastal cities or these port cities affected the culture and economy of the middle colonies. And then I've also put up here right next to this William Penn. All right, and the title of this, William Penn's Peace Treaty with the Native Americans. So that should give you some clue as to what to look for. When you're going through this, the first thing I would do when I'm identifying the picture is I would try to see if this is associated with a particular colonial region. For instance, using the same examples, William Penn, I would make sure that, yes, I know that this is associated with the middle colonies. All right, so now, how did William Penn affect the culture and economy of the middle colonies? Or how did Philadelphia, affect the culture and economy of the middle colonies? So when you're identifying it and going through this first step, once again, after you identify whether it's a specific person or event or maybe a larger point, you want to try to associate it with either a particular region or explain how it's connected to all 3. So once you've gone through and you're clear about each image, then you can move on to step number 2. All right. Step number 2 is the main task, and that's when you have to explain each link between the images where the sides of the hexagons touch. And so this is very similar to the 4 corners activity that we've been doing. So for instance, if we go back here to the very top, to Philadelphia, you would have to explain how Philadelphia is linked to the William Penn picture and how Philadelphia is linked to the picture on the other side. Once again, we're not doing anything with the middle image right now. I've given you some examples as to the phrases that you can use. These are not the only phrases that you're able to use, but I think that gives you a really good start as far as being able to depict the link between the 2 images. All right. After you're done with step 2, this is when you finally look at the middle image. What other images can fit in the middle of the hexagon pattern? The middle hexagon pattern kind of sums up as a summarizing image. So when you're looking at what other images would fit in the middle of the hexagon pattern, you want to think about an image that could sum up the colonial regions as a whole. If you didn't like a particular image and you wanted to replace it, which one would you remove? Why? And then finally, these are the key checks for understandings. All right. I want you to do this. And make sure that you're writing complete sentences. And this is really going to check to make sure that you're understanding the three colonial regions and what makes them unique, but also what are some common characteristics that they're sharing. Once we get this stuff done, we can really dive into this question right here. How did geography affect the culture and economy of the British colonies? So to give you an idea of what this should look like, this was a product from last year. And it's on a different topic, but you can see here that these young ladies went through and identified, all right, each of the images. All right, so for this top one is dealing with the Oregon country, and so the first thing they did, it was write a small paragraph identifying the Oregon country and talking about how it's related to the focus question. So they said the Oregon country was a joint territory between the United States and Great Britain. James K. Polk called for annexation, which resulted in 54-40 fight. This divided the Oregon country for separate ownership rather than joint. This is a benefit. So the central question here that they were doing for this assignment was talking about the drawbacks and benefits of U.S. expansion. So they related it back to the focus question. This is a benefit because we gained more land through this division and didn't go to war. All right. So they've identified the picture, and then they've answered. They've talked about how that image or how that event is tied back into the focus question. So you would say, for instance, you would talk about Philadelphia and, identifying Philadelphia as a major city in the middle regions in Pennsylvania. And then you would talk about how does Philadelphia being a major port city in the middle colonies, how does that affect the culture and the economy of the middle colonies? All right, and then you'd go on to the next one. William Penn, identify who he is, why is he important, and then you want to relate William Penn back to that focus question. And you also see that in between, they did little links here. So once again, looking at this first one, they're linking it up to this bottom image, and they said that the Oregon country was split as a result of manifest destiny and the desire to move westward. And that's okay because the image right here to my finger is a quote about manifest destiny. And so they said that, the Oregon Territory was an example of the United States manifest destiny and our desire to move westward. You don't have to give me very much there. Once again, think about that four corners activity and the phrases that we use to link those two factors together. That's something really similar that I want to see with this activity. So you don't have to cut it out and put it on a larger paper. Some people like to do it in the space provided. Some people like to cut it out and put it on notebook paper and write on notebook paper. Some people like to use larger paper. It is completely up to you. Some people like to label the images and then write on a separate sheet of paper. I really don't have a preference. I'm looking for, did you identify it? Did you explain how it answered the focus question? And did you link it to the hexagons that we're touching on either side? And then finally, did you answer the questions in step 3 and the check for understanding? I hope that these instructions have been detailed, and I hope that you enjoyed the activity.